Okay, let's get started for today. So we've been looking at some experimental based questions. We're going to keep going with that today to try help developing your understanding about plant adaptation. So let me share my screen with you once more. So I want to go through this second question again to make sure you all fully understand exactly what we meant by this, to try to get a better understanding about how different plants use their different parts, and also the different things they do in order to attract pollinators, for example. Okay, so if we can all look at the second question, please. So the second question is, the table below shares the characteristics of three flowers, flowers A, B, and C. Which of the following correctly describes how each flower is pollinated? So you have one which is wind, by animals, by animals, by animals, by animals, or by wind, animals, or wind, and animals. So you can give me the correct answer. Yes, Dino.
Number 3.
Number 3. Why is it number 3?
Because if flower A is small and red, the color red will attract insects, so it will use animal. And flower B have big and white flowers, and the white didn't attract many insects, so it was carried by wind. And flower C is white and small, but it is scented, so the sweet nectar will lure insects to the small flower.
Exactly. So what we need to do is just think about what the plant looks like. So we said the first one is red. So red is definitely a color which will attract insects. It's small, so it's got small leaves, meaning that insects have to actually get in to the flower in order to get to the nectar. And it's unscented, but we still have the red color to attract insects. The second plant is white. It's got no color. It's also got no smell, and the leaves are big and it's large. If you see big leaves or big petals, what you can make an assumption is that it doesn't really want things to walk all over it or walk inside it. What it wants is wind to blow the pollen away from the big petals to somewhere else, right? If it's small and enclosed, well then the pollinator's got to get inside. If it's wide and open, the wind will work just fine. With the third flower, it's white, okay, so it's not going to attract pollinators that way. It's got small leaves, so once again we said small, the animal's going to have to go inside, and it's got a smell, it's scented. So the animal or the plant is encouraging animals and pollinators to come inside the small leaves because of the nice smell. So as Dino said, what we've done is we've taken the colors and the scents and the size of the petals to make assumptions based on what we can see. Does everybody understand that? Does everybody get where we're coming from? I'm going to move on. Just remember that colors and bright colors attract pollinators, as do smells. Okay, let's go to the next question. Okay, so look at question 24. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which of the following flowers is most likely to be pollinated by wind? Emily, what do you think?
I think it is number 2.
Number 2. Why do you think it's number 2?
Because it has the female reproductive part and the male reproductive part.
And now you think that is most likely to be pollinated by wind, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone think anything else? Any different one? Bill, what do you think?
I think it's number 3.
Number 3. Why do you think it's number 3?
Because the wind blows the pollen, so the pollen fall in stigma.
Okay, you think okay. Okay, so I'm gonna ask this question. What part of the plant has pollen on it? MTA.
The filament.
The filament holds something that has the pollen on it. What's the other part of the male reproductive section?
The anther.
Yeah, so the anther has the pollen on it, right? So have a look at those pictures again. in which picture can you see the anther and the filament outside the petals? Okay, let's try. Hermione, what do you think?
I think it's number 3
Yeah, I think it's number 3 as well. Why do you think it's 3?
because the filament and the anther is outside of the petal, so the wind can easily blow the pollen.
Yeah, I would agree with Hermione, Lucy. Hermione, okay. I agree with Hermione in the sense that when you look at petals, some of the petals they're closed around. Remember what we said about the previous question? That we said when we've got small petals, they're encouraging pollinators to come inside, okay? If you have wide open petals, and particularly with number 3, when you can actually see the filament and the anther outside of the petals, the wind is getting to it faster and easier. With small petals, the wind is not going to get to the anther and the filament, meaning it's not going to be able to blow the pollen. So once again, if you look at the structure of that question and you look at the structures of the plant and know what they do, you can think, okay, hold on. So wind pollinates by blowing pollen from one plant to another. How is it going to get to that plant, or how is it going to get to that anther if it cannot get through the petal? The petal protects it. So what you need to do is look for the plant, the filament and the anther are outside or away from the petal, which is why number 3 is correct. Number 1, 2, and 4, they're all small. Yes, they contain the male and female parts, but once again, the male and female parts, you want the animal to come inside to pollinate, okay? That's the whole point. Small petals comes inside. Large petals with filament and anther on the outside is going to be pollinated by wind. What do you think? What do you think plants 1, 2, and 4 have in common? What do they have in common? MTA.
They all have in common because the male or female parts are inside the petals.
Yeah. So the male and female parts are all inside the petals. What does that mean? If the male and female parts of the flower are all inside the petals, what do you think that means for that particular flower? Dino.
I think it is will pollinate by pollinators.
Yeah, cool. So when you see all male and female parts held within inside the flower, and particularly when they're inside, it's going to be likely needed. A pollinator is likely to be needed in order to help them reproduce and fertilize. Okay, let's look at the next question. For Sharia fruits, I have no idea what they are, A, B, C, and D were used in an experiment to find out if the physical factors of the fruit affect how far they can be dispersed. So the physical factors, how do they look, right? Each fruit was thrown from the same height and the distance it traveled. And the distance it traveled is recorded in the table below. So fruit A, distance traveled 8 meters. Fruit B travels 6 meters. C, 3 meters. D, 2 meters. Which variable in this experiment had the greatest effect on how far the Sharia fruit can be dispersed? Elsa, what do you think?
I think the span of the fruit affects the most.
The span of the fruit. Why do you think the span of the fruit?
Because if it is big, if the span is bigger, it will travel farther.
Okay. Dina, what does span mean?
It's the line from one point to another point.
Yeah, okay. I'll accept that as an answer. There's a there's a good way to understand this, okay? So if you take your hand, for example, your hand span, the span of your hand is the point from one point to another. So that's the span of your hand, okay? There's your hand span. So this is the size of your hand. The same with the fruit, right? So the span of a fruit is the point from one distance to the other. So here you can see 4.3 centimeters, 4.3 centimeters, 3.5, and 2 centimeters. So if you were to talk about which one has the most effect, you can say the span. You look at the mass here. The mass is 14 grams, 18 grams, 20 grams, and 14 grams. Well, if fruit A goes further and it has a mass of 14 grams, but fruit C has a mass of 20 grams but only goes 3 meters, what can you say about the mass? Does the mass affect the distance fruit can travel or disperse?
But I think the number of wings can help because it will act like a propeller and will spin in the air longer and can fly further.
Yeah, okay, Dino, I agree with you, but in this situation, it's not a seed, right? They're not actually propellers. They're just like arms of the fruit. They're fruits. They're not seeds, okay? Remember that, like, with inside a fruit, there is a seed. The reason animals create fruits is we want to the reason plants create fruits is because we want animals to eat them. So we make fruits taste yummy. We make fruits in a way that animals want to eat and eat the seeds and then move them somewhere else. In this sense, what's happened is it's not it's actually dropping to the floor. And when it's dropping to the floor, what's happening is the fruit is bouncing and moving somewhere else. So in this case, the major factor which results in the seed or fruit moving as far as it does is due to the span of that fruit. If you were to think about which would move further, a book or a ball, if you drop the ball is going to bounce. It's going to move further than the book would. The book's just going to hit the floor and not move. So if you were to think about something you wanted a seed to be in order to move as far away, you want it to be something that replicates a ball or that will move as fast as you can or move as further as you can. So therefore you choose a ball. Okay. Have a look at this question. Why are mangrove trees able to grow in muddy soil that has a poor supply of oxygen? Monkey, why are they able to do it?
They have breathing roots to reach.
So, who can tell me another reason why? Pingu.
The root can go above the water to take oxygen.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you're right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain this answer to you. I'm going to write it in to give you an understanding, okay? First things first is you have these breathing roots. So there and there and there. They come out of the water in order to allow the plant to get additional carbon dioxide down to the root, which is going to allow them to store and get more food there, okay? So we'll talk about that now in a second. They've also got these what are called prop roots. The word prop means to stand up. If I said, okay, there's a person and they go to war and unfortunately they lose one of their legs. Now, this person cannot stand straight anymore. So what we need to do is we need to give them a walking stick. The walking stick props them up, okay? It keeps them standing. Without the walking stick, the person would fall on the floor. So the walking stick is to help prop them up. The same is with a mangrove tree. A mangrove tree has these special roots which keep most of the plant out of the water. Only the roots go under the water. Now what happens is you've got some of these breathing roots that come up that give extra carbon dioxide to the roots under the ground. So that extra breathing root allows the plant to survive. So it's got two reasons. One, it's out of the water. The main stem of it is out of the water, which means it's not soft, and you have these extra breathing roots as well. So if you're to write an answer as to why, you can say the mangrove tree has roots that prop it up and out of the water, keeping the stem hard, not soft. You can also say it has breathing roots which allow it extra CO2 which it is not getting under the water. So there's two reasons, okay? So it has Roots would prop it up out of the water, and it's got extra breathing room to allow it to get extra CO2. Why do you think why else do you think a mangrove tree needs roots to prop it up out of the water? What's that going to do to the tree? What's it allow the tree to do? Do you know?
The stem don't die because too much water.
Oh yeah, too much water. Okay, what's the problem with too much water?
The stem will become very weak and the whole tree will fall.
Yeah, the stem can become weak and the whole tree can fall. Good stuff. What else about the water? What else is dangerous about the water? Okay, Monkey, what else is in the water?
Some sorts of chemicals.
Some chemicals, okay. Emily, what else is in the water?
There are some fish.
Yeah, fish and animals, okay. So what happens, to give you a story. So I work with another school, and in that other school we planted some trees, we planted some little plants. We went away for a weekend, and when we came back the next day, what we found was that mice had eaten most of the plants. They had actually got in and ate all the seeds and ate all the stems, and the plants were nothing. They were completely gone. So what's happened is all these little animals got in and they started eating away. With a mangrove tree, same thing happens. You've got fish, you've got other little animals that live in the water. They turn around and go, growing mangrove tree, my favorite, yum, 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 yum. So they go ahead and they start eating the mangrove tree. The more the mangrove tree can stay out of the water, the less of the plant and tree that can be eaten by little animals. So you've got many reasons as to why. And remember this as well. When we spoke about adaptations, we spoke about ways in which plants have changed or adapted to their environment in order to survive. If you're thinking about extra animals living in the water, a mangrove tree needs to prop itself up in order to survive, right? If it's gonna live, it needs to stay out of the water. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. Okay, so, this is something we've done before. Two different plant parts, S and T, are shown below. How are these plant parts similar? Both plant parts make food. Both plant parts contain seeds. Both plants help in reproduction. Both plant parts store extra food made by the leaves. What is the correct answer? Bill, what do you think?
I think it's D only.
D only. Why is it D only?
It not contain seeds.
Not correct seeds, okay.
It's not for reproduction.
It's not for reproduction. Okay, who else is talking in the background? Who's helping you, Bill? No more help. Okay. Yeah, there's nothing there for reproduction. What are some plant parts that are needed for reproduction? Monkey, what are some plant parts needed for reproduction?
A flower.
Flower, okay. What else?
The male part is the pollinator.
Okay, no, not go that far. So you're right with flower. So things like the flower, the petal, the pistil, the carpel, the stamen, all of these stuff are stuff that are needed for reproduction. If you look at those pictures, can you see any of the reproductive sections of a plant? Kent. Okay. Dino, what does S do?
What? It is take in nutrients.
Yeah, it takes in nutrients. So with S in a carrot, it is not for reproduction. The root is only to store nutrients through the winter to help it survive. Roots are not a part of the reproductive cycle, okay? The only parts of the reproductive cycle are stamen, so that's the filament, the anther, the female parts, so that's the stigma, the style, the ovary. We use the petals as well in order to attract in the flower, but if you're asked what the root is for, the root is never part of the reproductive cycle. So if you have a look at these two plants, Bill was correct. So none of them are involved in seed creation. They are both part of the root system. So both plants store extra food made by the leaves. So what is happening is that this is a root and this is a root. We said this is a taproot and this is a taproot as well. What taproots do is they store additional nutrients to help the plant survive in times when there are not that much nutrients. So they take extra food made by the leaves and store them in. Both plant parts contain seeds. No, roots do not contain seeds. well, plant parts make food. No, roots do not make food. Only the leaves make food. Roots can store the food, like you can see in this situation and this situation, but they are not directly involved in the creation of food. Okay, got quicker question. So the diagrams below show some edible plant parts. Which part of the plant does each part come from? So you got a cucumber, a cabbage, and an onion. Now, I want you to tell me if it's a fruit, a leaf, or a root. So what about the cucumber? MTA, where does the cucumber come from?
It is come from the fruits.
It comes from a fruit. Yes, good job. What about a cabbage? Where does a cabbage come from? Minnie?
A leaf.
Yeah, a leaf. Cabbage, lettuce, they are all called leaf vegetables. And Dino, last one, where does the onion come from?
The root.
Yeah, onion is a root vegetable. Okay, good job. So, what are two plants similar? State any two of the observation similarities. Okay, so they both grow in water. They both have leaves, but they pollinate in two different ways. Okay, so that's the final question. So, I'm going to send you a quizzes for your homework about some more plant adaptations, get you thinking about male and female reproductive sections. And that is all for today. Everybody, goodbye, bye-bye, bye-bye-bye.
Bye.